Hello, Esmee Hawkey, and welcome to our short chat before the PCA PCGB International Sim Racing Challenge. So you are a Porsche Carrera Cup GB racer in real life, and usually your season starts about March, April time, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's normally when it starts. Would have been March this year, end of March, but obviously it's not gone ahead due to lockdown.
Right, so absolutely no start to the season whatsoever.
No, we kind of did some testing and we had the official test day at Silverstone, but other than that, no, there's not been any racing.
So many real life racers have ended up doing sim racing because of the lockdown. You know, they want to get back into the competition. Has the lockdown driven you in towards sim racing as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my sim was not currently working before lockdown, and then we were rushing to get it fixed so that we could all kind of jump onto it. So sim racing's definitely been a huge part of lockdown for me, and just to kind of get back behind the wheels been really important because obviously to take so long out of racing, it just yeah, it's not great. And obviously we wanna always be behind the wheel and always practicing, and we don't want to lose our focus. So it's a great way to kind of carry on with that focus. And yeah, it's been really fun, and getting involved with the racing is still so competitive. So yeah, it's really great to get behind the wheel.
I should imagine lots of people think it's just a computer game and actually all you're doing is playing about. But I saw a YouTube video a little while ago of Chris Harris from Top Gear, and he had the opportunity to drive the Porsche 919 LMP car. But before they'd even let him in the car, they made him drive it in sim. So there's obviously some real validity to be able to go and do sim driving.
Yeah.
What are the key things that you're finding from doing the sim racing now?
I definitely think, obviously, trying to keep that focus up and just trying to stay focused on my racing. The Sims really helped in that kind of way. And just trying to keep that competitive side in me still burning because going into the races, I'm doing a Porsche Carrera Cup GB race for a bit of fun with all the guys from Carrera Cup GB. So that's been really fun, and we do a race every Monday. So we do two races. One's a reverse grid, and it's just really good to kind of get on the grid. You got practice qualifying two races, so you just yeah, it's like a normal race, but just you're kind of on your own in a sim, which, yeah, it's just great to kind of keep up that fiery spirit. And yeah, it's been really enjoyable to just keep racing.
Oh wow! So you still get that sense of the wheel to wheel competition in there, despite the fact it's not a real wheel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the sim's pretty realistic as well. Obviously, slightly different to real world. You don't have, I guess, the movement of the car. You just focused on what you're doing, your inputs through the steering wheel, the pedals, and what you see on the screen is all you can do really. But yeah, it's just really great to get behind the wheel.
And actually, that does beg the obvious question: is because of the lack of motion, and we're so used to what a car tells us in the real world in terms of that. I should imagine, you get that sensation of a car over rotating, through your body rather than through anything else, and that's missing in the simulator. So when you first got into a sim, did you find it was a lengthy time to adjust, or did you adjust quickly? Do you find your other senses pick up that missing bit of movement?
Yeah. It definitely takes a bit longer, I think, to kind of get into sim racing than real racing. But obviously, it's still kind of the same thing as real racing. You're still using the same techniques you would use in real life. You just don't have the motion of the car, and you don't feel it in the seat as much. But yeah, I definitely think that it didn't take me too long. Still kind of working on my sim racing to date. Yeah, but I think you kind of just use what you know and use that to kind of do the best you can.
Yeah, yeah. The force feedback these days is amazing, isn't it, through the
Yeah,
wheels?
definitely. The wheel's amazing.
Yeah, from sort of my own experience of using iRacing as well, I found that their use of sound is actually very good. You get the subtle noise of tyres starting to chirp.
Yeah,
so you sort of couple those up with the force feedback, and you do get some quite good sensations.
yeah, for sure. I recently got some headphones which I hadn't had before, but that definitely makes it a lot more realistic as well. Kind of like you've got a helmet on, so
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's really good. Yeah, I think it's a lot better for me once I got the headphones on and you're really focused, and it's kind of like it's just you and the car. So yeah, it kind of takes you into real life where it would be you and the car racing. So yeah, I find the headphones are really, really helpful, and it's a great kind of part of my sim.
Excellent. That's a great tip. So I read an interview with you recently as well, where you'd said that you started out as a young girl doing typical things like ballet and tap,
Yeah.
which was fascinating. But you were watching your father kart racing. So what was it about the racing that really made you want to go and do that instead?
I just think the whole community of racing, the adrenaline, the speed, just all that is just what kind of got me into it. And seeing my dad and his teammates and how everyone kind of came together and worked together, I just kind of loved the whole community feel about it. And yeah, I just wanted to get involved because of that. I think as well, you've got the amazing crowds and yeah, just all the fans, just everything about it really.
So last week we had the first part of the Porsche Club America, Porsche Club GB International Sim Race Challenge between the two clubs. And after the race had finished, some of our guys had had good races, some of them hadn't. And in what we're calling our digital paddock, which is an app called Discord, we were all chatting away in there, and a lot of the guys were really giving themselves a hard time for the mistakes they'd made.
Yeah.
And it became very apparent that although this was digital and therefore not real, the emotions were very real.
Yeah.
So all those emotions associated with racing were definitely coming up. In the sort of sim racing you've been doing the last few weeks, have you found that emotions are there? Are they playing a part of it? Do you have nerves on the start line anymore?
I mean, emotions have been a huge part in sim racing, and I probably would say I'm more nervous doing the sim racing than I am in real life. I don't know why.
Wow.
But just yeah, it is quite nerve wracking, and there are some really high emotions that kind of run through when you're doing it. And I don't know, I just it's such a competitive feeling, and you just want to do the best you can. And when you make those mistakes, you're like, oh, I know I'm better than this. And yeah, it is really like you do get really emotional when you're doing it, and you just get. I think in the sim as well, you get like so hot and sweaty and flustered, and it's like you're in a real car, and you're like, "What is up with me? It's just the sim, and I need to just like not worry about it so much." But it does kind of take you into like real situations where you do get flustered and you do get those emotions that you would in real life. Yeah, it's crazy, really.
It's fantastic to hear. Do you know what? I think there's a lot of sim racers who are going to take a lot of reassurance from that, myself included, because I always get nerves sitting on the start line of a sim race. It's
yeah,
well, it's fantastic to hear. So how do you overcome those nerves, or do they go just as soon as you start racing?
They definitely go as soon as I start racing. I think it's just that kind of start line, and you don't want to mess it up. And yeah, it's kind of that's where the nerves really start to kick in when you're waiting for the lights to go green. But I think once you get into your rhythm and you start kind of getting that breathing pattern correct, then that definitely helps me to calm my nerves.
Fantastic. So in Porsche Carrera Cup GB, there is the very, very obvious standout thing that you are the only female driver in the GB Champs at the moment. Yeah. And one of the things that you can be sure of is that kids will notice something different straight away. Yeah, and definitely. Are you finding that youngsters are noticing that you're the only female driver and therefore are paying you more attention? You know, do you get more questions from the youngsters in the paddock?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of youngsters who come and see me at the races, and there's definitely some familiar faces as well who have followed me for like the last couple of years, so that's really nice to kind of see them coming back. And yeah, we have a nice conversation and a chat, and yeah, they get something out of me coming to see me, and I think it's quite motivational to see a female in such a male dominated sport. So when I have little girls coming over and seeing me in the paddock, I always kind of tell them to follow their dreams and follow what they want to do, because it doesn't matter who you are or what you want to do, everyone is capable of doing it. So yeah, it's so nice to kind of see the youngsters following me.
In that interview that I'd read of you previously, I remember reading the point in there that when you were younger and your dad was racing karts and you noticed that it was just all men and you didn't know whether you were even allowed to ask if you could race. So it's fantastic that the youngsters now have somebody to turn to and ask about that. Absolutely brilliant. Definitely. Last question for you. As part of Porsche Club GB's sim racing challenge that we're just about to start at the end of the month, we're going to have a club championships, and we've chosen the Porsche 911 Cup car. Now, a lot of people say in iRacing it's one of the hardest cars to drive. Having experience of both the real life Cup car and the iRacing Cup car, do you have any top tips for our drivers?
Yes, definitely. Obviously, yeah, the Carrera Cup car is a really tough car to drive in sim racing and also in real life. But I would say in sim racing, what I've found the most is the car really does take feedback from what you're doing and the inputs that you make. So if you're having any lockups or anything like that, or if you're having kind of any rear wheel drifting through out of the corners, if those tyres are heating up, then it's not going to be easy to kind of keep the car on track, because once the tyres get too hot, it is really difficult to drive. But also I'd say that you need to focus on your braking points and getting the car into the apex, because if you're going to miss the apex, then you're just going to be sliding away from the corner and having you're just going to be sliding away from the corner, and you're not going to be able to get the exits that you need to go fast in the car. So those are kind of my top tips.
Fantastic. I suppose as with it being a 911 and that rear engine layout, do things like trail braking into the apex really help? Is that something
definitely.
that really get that nose level into?
We use in real life as well. Trail braking is super important in the Cup car. So yeah, that's definitely a technique that you need to learn for the Cup car. Maybe not so much in other cars, but yeah, it's a massive advantage in the Cup car. And once you kind of learn that technique, then yeah, that's how you go fast.
Fantastic. Well, Esmee, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us today. It's brilliant to hear your story. I hope that the rest of the season does get going and that the sim racing practice you've had actually helps you out in the real world. So thanks again for your time today.
Thanks very much. I hope so too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.